Chapter 8, Part 2. Huh? Byron said. Dad said, in other words, I'm sure you know that in the good old days every time you drove over a bump with one of these things, the needle would jump and scratch the record. Me and Joey played along. We know, we know. And as I'm sure such a fine, intelligent-looking family at this one, it is Mr. and Mrs. Watson and your son, isn't it? Oh, no, Joetta said, and pointed at Byron. This isn't our son. This is just a little juvenile delinquent boy that we feel sorry for and let follow us around some of the time. Our real son has hair. Even this didn't bother Byron, who was amazed by the Brown Bomber's latest addition. Dad kept imitating the guy who sold him the record player. Yes, and as I'm sure a nice family like this one is aware, it was only last year that the scientists at Autotronic Industries made a brilliant, beautiful, breathtaking breakthrough and developed a suitable system for controlling these vibrations. Yeah, I said. I saw it last night on the news. Walter Cronkite said it was a miracle. Dad laughed. Precisely, Mr. Watson. Walt has 2 of these babies in his car and 1 on his motorcycle. We know, we know. Yes, the vibration problem has been overcome by the exclusive vibrodynamic lateral anti-interial dampening system. Dad had memorized that word, because right on the arm of the record player it said VDLAI, dampening, patented. Come on, Daddy, turn it on. Stop teasing. Now, Mrs. Watson, be patient, and tell that little delinquent that follows you around that if he touches one more knob on that record player, I am going to pull his fingers off. Byron mumbled and sat back in the seat. Before I dazzle you with the symphonic sound of this unit, let me point out some of its less appreciated features. Oh, please do. Aw, man, just turn the blanked thing on. If I gotta listen to all this jive, I'm gonna go in the house and get some real cool sounds. Byron opened the passenger door and ran into the house. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Watson, I'd like to direct your attention to the rear of your classic automobile. Me and Joey crawled up to the back seat and looked at the back window. On the rear shelf, a hole had been cut and was covered with that same stuff that's on a screen door. I can see you're wondering what that is. Well, let me explain. What we have here is, believe it or not, a second speaker. And I can tell by that intelligent look on your face, Mrs. Watson, that you have grasped that speaker is not placed in the rear deck haphazardly. No, ma'am. Some people think we just have a hole hacked in back there by any old mechanic, but nothing could be further from the truth. That opening is scientifically and mathematically positioned by a factory-trained technician to enhance the TT-AB700's true high-fidelity sound. Wow! Byron exploded through the front door with an armful of 45s and Mama Wright on its tail. Byron Watson, don't you stomp on those stairs like that, and don't you slam that screen door. She trailed Byron all the way to the car, fussing at him the whole way. I knew she was using Byron as an excuse to come back out and see what was going on. I guess all the laughing and fun we were having made her want to join in. Now that she was back, Dad started really cutting up. Well, Mrs. Watson, Dad said, but not to Mama, to Joey. I see your beautiful young daughter has decided to join us, and not a moment too soon either. Why don't you scoot over a bit and let her in? Joey loved this chance to pretend she was Mama's mom. She patted the seat next to her and said, Come on in, honey. This is really cool. Mama slid in under the steering wheel with a halfway smile on her face. Wonderful, wonderful, Dad said. Byron lifted the record that was already on the turntable and started putting one of his own cool songs on. Put it back, son. You'll get your turn. First, we have a special request from a certain young lady to a certain handsome young man. If you'll excuse me, ma'am, I'll just reach over here and get this show on the road. Dad reached over past Mama to start the car, but on the way, his hand kind of accidentally on purpose brushed by her chest. Boy, did they think we were blind? Even though Dad thought he was being slick, everybody saw this. Mama puckered up her lips to squeeze down a smile and crossed her arms over her chest. Joetta giggled, and me and Byron scrunched up our faces. Mama did a fakety little slap at her hand and smiled. Dad turned the key and the Brown Bomber fired up. Okay, young lady, here's that special number you requested. Dad couldn't help himself and started imitating a DJ. Here's the man with the patter, here to spin the platter. Why, it doesn't matter, 'cause the world is getting fatter. I'm the man with the tune that'll make you to the take you to the moon, that'll make your poor heart swoon. I'll hold you like a spoon. I'm the man with the jive. Byron chirped up. Ain't that the whole natural truth? But Dad didn't miss a beat. Put your love thing in drive, bring your little world alive. Mama slapped the car seat. Daniel, start that record. All right, all right. Dad stopped his rhyming, not because Mama told him to, but because I bet he ran out of stupid poems. But first, let me tell all you people out there in Radioland that this number was requested by a Miss Willona Sands for the wonderful, wonderful man in her life, the big daddy of love, Daniel Watson. We at Flint's only soul station, Wham, decided this song to Daniel from Willona. Spin it, maestro. Dad reached over past Mama to start the record player. Joey grabbed my arm with one hand and squealed it into another. Byron was grinning like a giant, bald-headed kindergarten baby. Mama still had her arms crossed, but was starting to smile. She brought one hand up to cover her mouth. My foot was tapping on the Brown Bomber's floor, a mile a minute, and I couldn't make it stop no matter what I did. I guess I was grinning pretty hard, too. Dad's hand touched a knob that had said start written on it. But before he turned it, he pulled his hand back and said, First, however, we all screamed, Daddy! Aw, man! Come on, Dad! Daniel! But Dad wasn't through yet, and you couldn't rush him. In fact, the more you'd complain, the longer he'd take. He put his hand up to stop the noise, but first, we at Wham want to apologize to the 9 other women who called in requesting love songs to be dedicated to Daniel Watson. If they stay tuned, we'll play their songs later in the evening. Mama said, That's it, and started climbing out of the car. It was a fun that's it, though, not a serious one. Dad blocked the door and finally turned the knob that said start. Then he got into the back seat. We all froze. Even the Brown Bomber seemed to get quieter as the VDLAI arm from the record player lifted itself and moved toward the 45 that was on the turntable. The arm dropped and a hollow little boom bounced around in the car. A moment of silence, and then the most beautiful notes of music I'd ever heard came from the front of the car and the back of the car at the same time. Doom da doom doom, doom da doom doom, doom da doom doom doom. The notes were so deep and strong it felt like we were sitting inside a giant bass fiddle. Mama screamed and put both of her hands over her mouth. She had recognized her song after the first couple of notes. The guy on the record started singing Under the Boardwalk, and I had to turn around and look because it sounded like he was right in the back seat with Dad. We sat in the car for almost 2 hours as everybody got a chance to go in the house and get their favorite records. Even though we had a pretty good record player in the house, it couldn't compare with the sounds that came from the scientifically and mathematically put-in speakers that the Brown Bomber had. The Ultra Glide can't cast a spell on all of the weird Watsons. Byron was always saying that Mama couldn't stand to see anyone having too much fun, but to be fair to her, I have to say that she stopped us from having fun in steps, instead of doing it all at once. First, she thought the music was too loud and made us turn it down some. Then after all of us kids got to play 4 songs each, I played Yakety Yak all 4 of my times, she made us get out of the car, and she and Dad played Nat King Cole and Dinah Washington and other mushball singers. Then she said to Dad, Did you tell them yet? Oh, no. I leaned into the car to get a look at Mama's stomach. This sounded like the way Byron and me found out we were going to get a sister. Everybody's ears jumped up. Something big was going on. Dad wasn't too comfortable with things like this and said, No, it can wait. No, it can't. Mama let the last song finish, then said, Turn it off, Daniel. Children, in a little bit, Daddy's going to get some vacation time, and we're going to drive to Alabama. Grandma Sands is going to keep Byron for the summer, and if things don't work out, he'll stay there for the next school year. This was too good to be true. A long trip in the Brown Bomber and no Byron for the whole summer, and probably for the whole year, 'cause when it came to Byron, nothing ever worked out. Byron looked at Mama and Dad with his mouth wide open. We've been telling you, Byron. You've been given warning after warning and chance after chance to straighten up, but instead of improving, you're getting worse. Do I have to remind you of the things you've done this last year?" Byron still didn't close his mouth. Mama started ticking off the things that Byron called his latest fantastic adventures. "You've cut school so much that Mr. Alums has come here 3 times to see what's wrong with you. You've been lighting fires. You've been taking change out of my purse. You've been in fights. You had that trouble up at Mitchell's food fair. You had that problem with Mary Ann Hill. You set mouse traps in the backyard for birds. You fell out of that tree when you were trying to see if that poor cat always landed on its feet. You got that conch. You joined that gang. There's just too much, Byron. We can't have all this nonsense going on." I hoped those weren't the only latest fantastic adventures that Mama knew about. I could list about 100 more. "That's why Grandma Sands is going to look after you for a while. You're about to run us crazy." Mama changed the tone of her voice. "You're going to like Birmingham, Byron. It's a lot different than Flint. There are lots of nice boys your age down there who can be friends with you. There's lots of fishing and hunting that you can do. Things are a lot better there. I love that city. Your grandma tells me it's quiet in our old neighborhood. She says that stuff on TV isn't happening around her. It's just like I remember it being. It's safe, it's quiet, and there's no buphead." Mama and Dad had threatened to send Byron to Grandma Sands about 1,000,000 times, but we never thought it would happen. This was for 3 good reasons. The first reason was that Alabama was about 2 million miles from Flint, and By knew Mama wouldn't let him ride the bus that far alone. He also knew it would be just about impossible for her to sit on a bus with him for the 3 days it took to get there. The second reason was that Mama and Dad were always threatening to do stuff to Byron that everybody knew they wouldn't do. Dad had been keeping a countdown on how many more months it would be before they could force him to join the army, but we knew that wouldn't do. But the biggest reason Byron and Joey and me thought they'd never send him to Alabama was because we had heard so many horrible stories about how strict Grandma Sands was. The thought of living with her was so terrible that your brain would throw it out as soon as it came in. Well, Byron's brain had better get used to it. We all knew by the way they'd gotten the bomber ready and by the way Mama's voice sounded that they meant it this time. The big, cool baby finally shut his mouth and ran into the house. He slammed the door as hard as he could, and we all heard him say real clear, the S word. Joey said, "Ooh." Dad started to go in after him, but Mama said, "Let him go, Daniel. He better get as much of that nonsense out of his system as he can. Grandma Sands won't be putting up with any of that mess."